So you've lost the keys to your Volkswagen, and you don't know what to do to get into it. Well, using one of these, and one of these, and one of these, yeah, seriously, you can get into it. And if you want to go nuts, here's some extra credit points. Watch. Welcome back to another Lord Duckman production. Now I know when I began this video I actually used a little bit of stock footage. That's really just because I didn't feel like pulling the car apart. There's no reason for me to have to use a plunger, but for those of you that are out there, this is a lot easier to use than the professional tool, and it does get the job done. I just hit myself in the head with my own unclogger. Yeah. Alright, well of course I didn't feel like pulling the windows out of this car, so I figured I'd use some old clip footage that I had before. Now of course this will only work on 68 and up Volkswagens anyway, and it's only really going to work if your steering column is already broken, and this one is. So it's already free. It doesn't have a column lock on it that actually functions. Otherwise, yeah, you might get it running and driving, but you probably won't be able to steer it unless you tear the steering apart anyway. Anyways, why we are here today is because the ignition switch on this thing does not keep the coil powered on while it's cranking the engine. What happens is the coil is actually on the headlight circuit. So when you turn that key, the headlights go off, which also shuts the coil off. There's a separate connection inside the ignition switch. It's supposed to go back to the coil. This one, unfortunately, doesn't seem to be working properly. And when I hooked it up properly, it still doesn't work. And the telltale sign was I would crank the car, crank the car, crank the car, had nothing firing, but as soon as I let go of the key, all of a sudden the engine would stumble once. And that's what told me that it was then getting power once I released that key, but it wasn't enough cranking momentum to keep the engine turning over, so it never actually started. So what we're going to do today is we're going to replace the ignition switch on this thing. That means the steering wheel's got to all come out. In addition to that, the steering wheel's not indexed properly. Right now this is the Beetle going in a straight line. Clearly the steering wheel's upside down, so we're going to pull that thing off. We're going to turn it around. We're going to swap out the ignition on this thing and get this thing working properly, and hopefully starting via the key in this video. Alright, let's go ahead and pull the steering wheel apart. Now, make sure your battery is disconnected before you get started. But on this style steering wheel, this plastic horn cover comes out like this, and then it'll turn left. Sometimes they turn right easier, but left will usually get it. Make sure your springs aren't getting hung up on the inside. This one did. I stretched it out a little bit. I'll have to fix that, but not a big deal. Keep turning it about 90 degrees, and it should pop out. There it is. Just like that. You guys have seen me do this before in earlier videos. It really isn't any different from that. If you had an earlier style steering wheel, it just had a little horn cap in the middle that pops out. Inside here, steering column is a bolt, or a nut I should say. It actually came out pretty easy. Might have actually been loose. That's a new. And there's a wire in here. Oh, look at that. It wasn't even connected to the inside of the horn. Maybe that's why our horn wasn't working. Fascinating. Oh, maybe we'll have to investigate that. Well, we're not putting any markings on the steering wheel, but right now the wheels are indexed as straight as I could get them. So the steering wheel should pull right out of here. There it goes. So we're going to put it back on later, like that, so that way it's on there correctly. Yes, there are keys in here because we didn't actually lose them earlier. You probably noticed that I threw them over my shoulder for cinematic dramatization. I'm going to take these 4 screws out of here. Not all of these cars always have 4 screws. Sometimes a few of them are missing or broken off, or worse yet, stripped out. Ask me how I know. I've done these a number of times. This one looks pretty cruddy too, but all these switches are working in here. So this might actually be just fine. I'm not going to do anything to it, not even clean it up, because if I clean it up it might stop working. Alright, we should be able to lift this out. We already had the wires unhooked from underneath here, that's what this is. Pull this sucker out. Alright. Then this should come off. This is plastic, that's interesting. Usually these are metal. I have not seen a plastic one before, but you know what? I don't work on too many 74 and up stupid Beetles. In fact, I really don't work on anything 74 and up. All the cars I've worked on are much earlier, but plastic cover, normally these are fastened in by 2 screws, so that one is not. Alright, this whole ignition switch looks to be a different style than some of the earlier ones also. It looks like I gotta do something differently in here. A little plastic clip pulled out. Looks like I'm gonna have to take the circlip off the steering column because the key switch is actually wrapped around the column, which is not like any of the earlier models that I've ever worked on before. So I gotta get a tool to pull that circlip out and remove this entire mechanism, and then it should expose the switch on the inside. Alright, well, let's dig into it. Alright, we are back with our circlip removing tool. See if we can get this thing indexed in such a way that I can grab it. And hopefully we can pull it out without it flying and disappearing. Well, it shouldn't. It's actually wrapped around shaft here, so there it is. Just pull that right out. Get that out of the way. Take our key, and I think, and I'm pretty sure, that this whole mechanism should lift out of here unless there's another screw holding it in. Maybe not. Huh. Interesting. You know what? I feel another screw up under here. Alright, let me grab another tool. So, you know, I grabbed the tool for loosening that Allen key that's under there, and it's not even there. So the screw appears to be missing. So this probably should just pull right out of here. Up there it goes. Just need to use a little more force on it. There's our key switch. Little Phillips head screw underneath there, and this sucker should come right on out. I took the little Phillips head screw out from the inside of there, and I noticed immediately, before I even pull the switch out, that it's not quite the same. The blades are in the same position, and we do know the switch works, but this one does not look like the one that's in here. Yeah, it's got a different meteor mount. I probably can pop the case off of this thing and make that fit. But I guess another solution also would be to just go ahead and just put it in there with a little bit of hot glue. So this is the only switch after contacting the auto parts place that they have for a 1974 Super Beetle. It doesn't look like this one at all, so I don't know if this was all original parts on here. I can't answer that question. The fact is I know somebody was in here because there's screws and things that are missing. So who's to say? Fact is, I can make this work, and I think probably the best way to do it is either to take the switch apart and move some of the plastic bits over to this one, or as I said, just glue it in. So, anyway, I'll try popping it apart and see. Yeah, there's part of our problem right here. You see this is broken. Yeah, it's actually broken right there. Yeah, I'll try popping it apart and see what I can do with it. If I can open it up and I can make these parts click onto here easily without destroying anything, then that's the route we'll take. Well, the more I'm looking at this part, and the more I'm attempting to open it up, I'm discovering it's got cracks all over it. So this thing is, part is just stressing out and it's breaking. So I guess the best bet's going to be just to put this one in with a little bit of hot glue and just make sure that she fits properly into position. You can see there's a bit of a void in there, so what I'll do is I'll fill that up so that way the switch can't do, well, exactly that, so it can't do that. I think that'll hold it in. I don't think there'll be a problem. So anyway, we'll splue it right in there, and I think we'll be good to go. Alright, looking at how this goes in here, looks like it's going to be tough this way. It's kind of tough coming straight out, but it's really weak going that direction. So this void in here is definitely going to need to get a little bit filled. And also where the screw hole is down there, it might be good to get a little bit on the inside here of hot glue and then press this into place. This, I probably should give it a good degreasing before I even get started, so I think we'll do that. I'll just wipe it down with a little bit of alcohol and just go over it once. Same with the switch. And make sure that everything sticks together real nicely. But otherwise, that's how we're going to do it. Alright, as I said, a little bit right in here. We're going to try to push the switch into that. And I also decided that I'm going to put a little in where that little screw hole is. It's not being used on this switch, but there is a slot for it to go into. That would normally go down into there, so we're going to glue that in too. Good news is about this glue is it's pretty easy to disassemble or remove it later should we need to. Just a matter of pressing the thing out. It should snap free. That feels pretty solid already. Wow. That did a hell of a job. Alright. And we want to fill this in here. hope this gun is hot enough to keep the glue flowing. Yeah, it looks like it is. Okay, good. Very good. And then we'll just get up in here a little bit just because this stuff is hot and I wouldn't recommend this to most people, but smooth it out. Woohoo! That's hot. Alright, here it is. I'll just let this sit out to cool. Probably going to take a few minutes at least. That was kind of a lot of glue. And then we'll check it and make sure that everything stays where it belongs. I think we're going to be good to go. I'm trying to smooth out the edge here, but I don't think that matters because this doesn't actually butt against anything. Alright, unplug the glue gun. I bought an extra stick and didn't even need it. I've let this sit for a good 20 minutes. You can see the hot glue is already starting to turn white. In fact, it's still a little gushy on the inside, but the fact is it's solid. This isn't going anywhere now. Not at all, so I think I'm pleased with that. That also means that our key switch should function. Of course, if I had the key, oh, there it is. Here's the key, it should work, and nothing should pull out or come out of place. No, we're good. Okay, perfectly serviceable. I talked to a couple other folks while I was waiting for this thing to harden up, and they said, well, that's a workable solution. Yes, the switch is identical. The only difference is the plastic body of it, and it only differs slightly. So there's no reason that we couldn't do this because they have done it before, and it holds up just fine. So anyway, as far as the screw in here that was missing, I can't even put one in if I wanted to. These threads are all stripped out of it. There's just no threads. So hopefully that circlip holds us all together good enough. But that goes in there just like so, and it gets a cover over it, which I imagine, yeah, the cover's got to go on first, so this got to go in here like that. There we go. And then put this back in where it belongs. And then I probably have to loosen the column lock, push this in. Just about got it. And it needs the old circlip in there, which was holding this whole thing together. I don't even know if I needed to remove it. I probably didn't. Yeah, I bet you I didn't. Looking at how this goes together, I don't think, yeah, I didn't need to remove that. Anyway, I did it anyway. There you go. You guys, you're welcome. You got a lesson for something else unnecessary. And a few times people called me out on that. Duckman, I did something unnecessary. Well, yeah, sometimes there's parts that I haven't gotten into or things I haven't taken apart yet. And one such thing is a 1974 Super Beetle Ignition. I've never been in one of these before. I don't own these things. My cars are older. It makes me sound a little bougie. I have fancier, older, classic cars. You guys have this newfangled contraption. Alright, this goes in there like that. There's a washer that goes on the top. That is it. I'm missing a plastic collar, which I think I dropped on the floor down here somewhere, but I don't see it. Is that it? Nope, that's a piece of my tripod. Alright, I'm gonna have to look around. It's here. I just don't see it. I found it. It slid under the seat. No big deal, right, guys? It was in there just like that. Alright, we gotta put this little cover back on here first before we go any further at all. What am I doing wrong here? There we go. Plastic wasn't seated properly. And it's in. Alright, then our turn signal switch needs to go back in here. This can be a little tricky. Don't force them. They have little pins that come out of the ends here. This is very fragile and brittle plastic. Very often, and you've seen me before demonstrate or show that there are wires that are burnt in here. They're in individual little passageways, so sometimes if they get a little melty, it's okay. If they're insulated, they don't touch the wire next to them. But you don't want to break that, or the little tubes for the windshield squirter, which none of these cars have ever had. Any of the Volkswagens ever had, never had a windshield squirter that worked. Case in point right here. Okay, there it goes. Going in just like that. Put this back on here. You know, before I ever even got this far, there's something I should have done. What I should have done is hook up the ignition wiring and turn that key one time to just make sure that everything works. So that way we know if we're going to have another problem or not. And I need to take it all apart anyway before I run in all these screws and get this thing seated in here. So what I did was a little bit foolish, just a little bit. Alright, here's our ignition wiring right here. Run that back up under here. It only plugs in one way. It's a 7-sided plug, which is really odd. I think it's 7-sided. Alright. Connect the battery real quick. Yep, we got our lights and we should have start. Alright, I think that's gonna work. Alright, you know, the other good thing is that before, when I turned the key, those lights would go off completely because the ignition for the coil stuff was wired into the headlights, which would cut these lights off, and now they're staying on. So we should be good. I think so. We'll throw a little gas in just a minute, see if we can get it start up, but I trust it. I think we're in a good spot. In goes our steering wheel. And remember, straight up and down like this, and I'm estimating that's where it's supposed to be, only because the wheel was on essentially upside down from where it should have been. Gotta wash it, needs to go in there, and then we have this nut, which I just dropped. These can be a little tricky, so I can't get my fat fingers in there. Sometimes it's threaded. Oh, got it on the first try. I don't believe it. All right, let's plug that up. Good to go. And just for grins, we did see that the horn was disconnected before. The wire inside of there wasn't hooked up right. Let's see if it fires the horn. Nope, still doesn't. Alright, we're gonna have to investigate what's going on here with this stuff. Just for shits and grins. Let's try grounding this out in here to a different location. Nope, still not sounding off the horn. I'll double check the fuse and stuff on that. We know we had power, but the horn switches from a ground location, which essentially is the button. So this should go on here, and this plugs into the center, right in here, of the horn switch stuff, like this. I hate to assume that this stuff is good, because I'm probably going to find myself tearing it apart again, but we're putting it on now. Let me turn that ignition back off. Sometimes it's easier to turn these things to the left versus the right. So it's going to be one of those. Yep, this is one of the ones that likes to be turned left instead of right. Make sure the springs go to where they're supposed to go. And if they line up properly and they have, there it is, clicked in. Alright. Works, and horn does not work. But it's in place where it needs to be. I don't hear any turn signals anymore either. I guess something's not hooked up right. I'm gonna have to double check that. Do have headlights though. I see them coming on and off out there. Okay, well, we're in a good spot. Really good spot. Oh, I know why turn signals aren't hooked up. You know why? Because Dickhead Duckman didn't hook up the wires to the turn signal switch. They're all dangling down there. Anyway, they need to go in underneath the steering column here. I'll try to show you guys how that works. It's actually easier for me to do this while looking in my camera screen. But it goes in just like this. And if you line up the pins wrong, well, things don't work. You might blow fuses, but yep, just push them in, just like that. There they are. Now we should have turn signals and stuff. Let's see. Look at that. Alright. We should have headlights, high beam, low beam. Fantastic. You know what I don't see is a little blue light in the dashboard. Well, I guess I'll investigate that. Probably a bad bulb or something. Or it could be in the wiring. I guess we'll see. Alright, while I was working on the dashboard here in the last video, I discovered the headlight wires had bad clips on them. We're going to cut the wires back here. We're just going to replace them. After I was moving these things around because they were on improper terminals, that's when I discovered that the coil was hooked up improperly because somebody put the headlight stuff on the coil stuff to keep the coil lit, but you couldn't start it. you had to push start it the way they had it wired. There's no other way to make that work. Well, Duckman to the rescue, right guys? Alright, put this on here. I'm gonna give this 2 pieces of shrink. What the hell did I just do here? Put blue one all the way up here. Put the pink one next. Get 2 different sizes of shrink. Blue one again, and a pink one. And then these connectors go on. And this crimping tool that I have here, this thing is fantastic. This is something that came from Radio Shack back in the day. So good luck trying to find one now. But old school Radio Shack stuff was the shit, man. These things make just an awesome crimp. It actually folds the wires down properly without crushing them, like you'd find on a typical pair of pliers if you try to do it that route. Anyway, that's ready to go. These are really, really nice crimp. Some people say, well, you should solder them. Yeah, you know what? Volkswagen didn't. And those things lasted how many years? This car will be 49 years old this year, or next year, I should say. Well, next year, no, hang on, it'll be 50 next year. 50 years old next year. And those connectors held up fine. What actually failed on the connector was the outside of it, not where it attached to the wire. So, anyway, everybody's always going to tell me what to do anyway. You should solder. You know, I do prefer soldering. Honestly, I do, and most of the time it is what I would do. Alright, we'll put this on here, put that one on there. We got our heat gun. Ordinarily, I like to use a lighter or a torch on it a lot faster, but this will get the job done too. Just gotta wait for it to heat up. And this is where the second piece of shrink comes in. So I like to put this over the blade on itself, so that way it's insulated so nothing touches it. This is something Volkswagen probably should have done, and I would say probably is one of the reasons why Volkswagen has so many electrical fires, because the stuff is exposed, but the way I do it, it's not exposed anymore. This is how you can tell my connectors apart from the ones that are on the car from factory, or the ones that somebody else worked on in the past. There we go. Now we just let them cool off, and then we plug them back into the, ow, they're hot. Plug them back into the fuse block where they belong, which I believe was right there. I'll just double check, but I think that's it. All the rest of these fuses look good, so I think that should be it. Alright, we'll be back after that cools down. I properly connected those headlight wires, and this is interesting because I kind of leaned on it by accident and discovered horn started working. I'll have to check the wiring diagram and make sure that's correct, but yeah, apparently something was connected to that and wasn't functioning properly. So the ground wire was fine. It looks like while I had this apart, the positive wire wasn't working, whereas in the previous video we had power down at the horn, which you're supposed to have because it's a direct connection from the fuse block to the horn. The switch side is through this, so this was disconnected. Anyway, solved. Good. Alright, good. Headlights are working. I can see them going on and off up there. High beams, low beams. Fantastic. Alright, we are functional again. Shut that down. Boop. The only thing I really need to check there is just that blue light in the dashboard to make sure that's working, which would be good. I can start putting the fuse block back together otherwise. Alright, I went and collected all the fuel tank related stuff. Hoses, fuel filters, the bolts that hold the tank in, all that wonderful stuff. I pulled out the tank, which I had just rested in there previously. Got a brand new piece of fuel line installed on it. It looks like it routes around the side here, and it's probably going to go in the furthest right-hand side hull. Yeah, I know it's left-oriented to how I'm looking at it, but this is the right side of the car. So I believe it's going to go in there. If not, it might go in through here. But down in that hull, I don't know if you can see it, but it's kind of directly beneath me there is where the filler goes in to the chassis that's underneath. Okay, gotta get that in there. I got the fuel filler portion put in here. There's the cap that's gonna go on it. There's a little divot over here for the breather. There's also the hose that goes up and over the top. So everything looks like it's here. This is the cable for opening the hood. This needs to be routed out of the way. That's gonna get in the way when I put the hood back in there. So that's now clear. Good. Okay, I guess we're ready to drop that tank in. One more thing, I noticed that's not the lowest spot of the gas tank for that bung to be sticking out of. So there's like a low spot in the tank here that's gonna hold, well, hopefully not too much water. There's also something here which looks like somebody cut and patched something. I don't know what's going on with this tank or its history. This is the tank he wants me to install. This is the tank he's getting. And because it does have an outlet there, that's the one we're gonna be using. May not be the best for his installation, but this will work. Even if it's only temporary, this will work. So let's go ahead and get the sucker installed in there, and well, go! I was moving this tank around, I heard a lot of sloshing inside of it, and I noticed that it was full of water. Probably about half a gallon of Kool-Aid colored water. More like the guts of a pumpkin if the pumpkin were rotted. It was pretty awful. Anyway, I suppose we probably should let that dry before we put anything in it. I don't know how long that water's been sitting in there. It could be quite a long time. Alright, make sure our fuel line is clear. It looks like it's cleared pretty well here. Alright, we gotta find our fuel sender wire. Here it is. And it should go here, just like that. It's in. It's gonna be hard for me to get those wires on there. I'm gonna need a pair of pliers. I can't reach under there. Okay. Yep. Wire shouldn't be under the tank. Ow. But maybe it should. Hang on. There's actually a passageway for it. Interesting. Yeah, there's actually a route for that cable. Well, you know what? Hang on. It's supposed to go on top of the tank and then go through the route. Okay. Oh, good. Tank is in. Now it just needs a little bolts that go around the edges of it, but no big deal. Okay. Alright, I got the night shot turned on because it's getting unusually dark out here. We're expecting a tropical system to be here in the next couple days, which is well, anyway, it's an El Nino year. There's a lot of high-level wind shear stuff, which is just probably going to knock it down, so it's not going to be much of anything. But anyway, we got all these fuel lines in here hooked up. We got clamps on, everything good to go. Our lug nuts are here because we pulled off the front right-hand wheel, and the reason for that was, for no reason other than, it was easier for me to get under here to install that fuel filter. You see it goes into the chassis over there. There's a line that drops down from the tank. You see the hole that it comes down through up there. So essentially, we're ready to start putting fuel in this thing. Yes, sir. Fuel City. Then, up here, one last thing. Check this out. Look at that. And it's on. Fantastic. Why doesn't that close right? Oh, that's why. Just need to be in the right position. Alright, well good. It's not bolted in yet, but the fact is all the connections have been made, so if we have a leak and I have to take anything apart again, I don't take those bolts back out. Anyway, I gotta install one fuel line back on the engine, which is going between the fuel pump and the carburetor. And I think that once we get that line, which goes from here up to there, then we should be able to crank it and see if she gets fuel. And of course, if she starts cranking and starting from the key, then all we gotta do is run screws in around the rest of this vehicle. I gotta screw in the rest of the tins in here. See, this kind of stuff needs to be put back in. Need to put the heater hoses back on. I bought a new set because this car didn't have any in there. I also need to install a little breather that goes on there and route that down and out of the way. Okay. Otherwise, yeah, we're in a really good spot. But it's getting dark really, really fast, and I have an appointment to leave for probably about an hour. So let's see if we can throw that fuel line on there, pour some gas in there, and let's see if it works. If everything works before I leave, that would make me really happy for tomorrow. Because then it's just a minimal job of running around putting screws in them. It's not even video worthy. All right, enough yapping. Let's make it work. put us some gas in here. We got about, oh, I don't know, 2 gallons in here. And it feels like it might even be a little less than that. Hopefully it's enough to get the filler filled up here. Looking to see if there's any leaks at the same time. Anything coming out anywhere, that's good news. I'll leave just a little bit in this can because I'm going to prime the carburetor in advance, because if I can get the engine running while it's primed, that'll get the pump going a whole lot faster and get the system flowing. There we go, it's got to be in the right position or it won't freaking close. Alright, around the back here. There you go. I'm gonna prime this thing up with just a little bit of fuel. Ooh, way too much. I always do that every time. Bloop, 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 bloop. Alright, if the electrical's all good, let's go and crank it. Alright, in I go. Oh, jeez. Didn't get any bigger in here. I don't know if we're in gear. You know what? We're not in gear. One of the reasons I know is because the shifter's not in there yet. Alright, you ready for this? Alright, cranky, cranky. Gas pedal don't feel right. Trying to start though. Let me just double check the throttle cable. If it's good, then we'll keep going. If not, I'll make an adjustment. Alright, we are trying once again. The throttle cable was actually out up front. It's like this whole seat just came out when I jumped around it over here. Feels good again. Let's see what happens. Come on, Volkswagen. I need to prime it just a little bit more. Alright, we'll do that. Alright, anyway, I gotta put a quit on this for the time being. There's a little fuel leak up underneath the left-hand rear wheel. So I think the fuel line under there needs to be replaced, or perhaps one of the clamps isn't pulling right, because it's not vacuuming the fuel up into the pump. It never makes it that far, and I found that it was a little wet down there, so clearly there's a leak, air's getting in, fuel's getting out. Wrong, shouldn't be doing any of that. However, when I turn the key, it does fire. It does fire. It's certainly trying. And it stumbles a little bit when I prime it, which is essentially what it's supposed to do. It's just supposed to get it cranked over, so that way the engine builds the RPMs and then the pump starts doing its job and starts pulling fuel into it a little bit faster. Anyway, we've gotten that far, that's good. I put the wheel back on in the morning. Try to get that video wrapped up so you guys can watch it sometime, I guess it'll be Wednesday around lunchtime here in the States. And, you know, I guess that's it for now. So, good night, guys. See you in the morning.
The following day.
Alright guys, we're back, and the tropical system is here. Expecting some gale force winds, and it's already effectively started raining. But I wanted to get this thing done today so that way you guys had a video. So in between the little dribblies that it's doing, I took a break over here, and, well, a work break. I got under there, and then, there you go, you can see it in there. Replace a section of fuel line. I don't think you can see a damn thing. Yeah, I can't see a damn thing. Anyway, I got under here, and I replaced that section of fuel line, because late last night, I'd say around midnight, 1 a.m., I started smelling gas, and I couldn't figure out where the hell it was coming from. I thought it was in the house. And I discovered that I had a waterfall down my driveway. So apparently, the fuel line that was leaking, which was getting both air into it and fuel leaking out of it, just decided to spring a leak and gushed everywhere. Thankfully, I didn't have too much gas in it. I'm not sure how much we even lost, but I don't even know why it took hours for it to do what it did, but it did it. So anyways, we're here. We got the sucker plugged in with a new fuel line. I think we're ready to get this thing started again. That's the only goal. Let's get it started and running under its own fuel supply and its own electrics, so nothing is piggybacked off of anything else anymore. So anyway, that's the goal today, and I think we're almost there. If this works, then we're gonna wrap up this video and close everything up before this rain really starts coming down. Alright, I had to run inside because it actually started pouring just for about a minute or two. But I'm set up again out here. And let's see if we can get this thing started. I did cheat and I put my electric pump in the line to make sure that it got primed properly, so that way the mechanical pump got gas. So it should start probably easily, because now at this point the carburetor is full because I cheated. There it goes. Check the choke on it. I don't know if the choke is set up. Well, you know, I didn't put the wire on the choke, so it's not going to open properly anyway. I have to make a little wiring harness for that. See, our gas gauge isn't working. I have to investigate that. Otherwise, our idiot lights went off like they were supposed to. I'll check the charging voltage and make sure we're good, but we've got a running Beetle. Just needs a fine-tuning and a shifter installed. This is good. Yeah. It's trying to idle. But anyway, just started pouring again. Alright, I guess it's time to put the tools away and be done, so that way you guys have a video for today. Alright, so licky, like, and comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to plug that dingle bell so you get updates every time I upload a video. Check out duckshit.net for all my different social media links. There's a whole bunch of stuff up there, and hopefully, I don't know, maybe we'll get one of my guest stars to come back on video. None of them are being replaced, by the way, so stop asking those questions. I'm not even going to address them. I just delete them. That's not what we're doing here. This video is about me and my projects. It's not about anybody else. So, thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.